Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andres Groves. I'm joined by one of my co-hosts, David Wyatt-Hupton. David, how are you doing today in week 14?
Week 14, man, it is going, isn't it? It is going. We're going to be in the off-season in just a matter of weeks. That's
the Jet season. We're in the Jet season.
Where we're the number one team in the off-season. That's always the way, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's just the way it goes until they change the narrative. Hopefully, we're finishing that, that kind of dominance of the off season, and we can maybe turn it to the actual season itself.
Not yet.
Not quite.
We need another one.
Yeah, just another go. Just let's have another go. So we're rolling into our game against the Saints at MetLife on Sunday. They look to be healing up, so it looks like we're getting Alvin Kamara. We're getting at least one of the two tackles back, so just in time to play us. Classic timing. I was joking with my mates who one of them's a Pats fan. It's just like, you guys just face like the easiest version of each team. And then even this past week, they faced a nerfed Bills passing attack because of the weather, right? It's like, I mean, that's on the Bills partly also because of like team building, right? In terms of like, you play in
they set their team up, haven't they? They've set their team up to win a certain way.
They set their team up like the Saints or the Falcons or something. You know, like you're in an open air stadium in one of the worst potential weather places, and you're kind of an air us out team. It's kind of you can't run the ball when you need to in a game like this. Like, yeah, it's not good. But yeah, we always face the returning players, and I'm sure Alvin will be having running through open meadows on Sunday evening.
We're like the magic healers of the NFL, aren't we? We're just.
Yeah,
they're just like, the Jets are coming up on Sunday. Oh, I feel better. I feel great. That torn quad is just completely fine now.
I get to stack up some numbers this week. Yeah.
I'm going to start myself in fantasy. That's what they all say, isn't it? I'm starting myself in fantasy this week.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what. I think anyone with Alvin Kamara this week is going to be pretty happy. So we'll be previewing the game as we normally do after at the end of the show. We'll be speaking to James from Dome Patrol UK, which is a UK Saints-based podcast. We had a chat about the Saints coming in, and they've been pretty injury hit, and so they are getting some players back in. But it's obviously been one of those years with Jameis, and then going on to Trevor Siemian, and then now with Taysom Hill. So it's been a bit of a year coming off the kind of the Brees era Saints. We had a good chat. But first, I think we'll kick off with a little bit of news. Okay, so the main news this week is really the kicker situation, and we let go of Alex Kessman predictably after he missed the 2 extra points, and we didn't trust him to make another kick. And then we brought in Eddie Pinheiro. We signed him to the active squad, and we actually brought in Matt Amendola back onto the practice squad. So, what do you make of your precious kicker position, David?
I mean, that's one of the shortest reigns as a kicker in NFL history, isn't it? I mean, he didn't even kick a field goal.
He made it into the first. He had 2 first quarter action, and that was it. He didn't even play in the second quarter. Yeah.
So the fact that we've lost faith with him without him actually kicking a field goal probably says everything you need to know about how bad it went. I mean, I feel pretty bad for him, but then kicking an extra point, if you miss 2 of them in a row, you kind of got to expect it because.
Yeah.
What we always say is there's only 32 of these jobs in the NFL. So if you're not performing at even an average level, you can't feel too sorry for him. I mean, I don't know anything about Eddie Pinheiro. I was just looking up his stats. He kicked for 1 year in Chicago, 82% kicker. At least he's kicked. This is something I've seen all the time. What I've been saying is we keep trying to hit this gold dust, like the Baltimore Justin Tucker undrafted hasn't kicked in the NFL, and you just happen to find one. Sometimes you just need to get through a season with a relatively okay kicker who's got some experience.
That's Joe Douglas, isn't it? Joe Douglas, he was in Baltimore during that time,
yeah.
Right? Does that line up time-wise with Justin Tucker's?
Yeah, I think it does.
So he must have been part of that. The guy's landing a Justin Tucker like that.
Did he evaluate him? I think I read a piece about Joe Douglas not that long ago, and I think in the research he was actually one of the main evaluators who got them to pick him up.
So
or
he's trying to hit. lightning in a bottle twice. I mean, you're talking about Justin Tucker's the greatest kicker of all time. You pick him up like that. That's definitely what they're doing. They're looking for traits, but
You kind of
this,
do that in the off season, don't you? You have your veteran who's there, and then you pick up an undrafted guy,
yeah,
and you'll get a sense through the off season if he's going to be a good kicker or not.
yeah,
Um, so I think just ride Pinero. I would have actually picked up Josh Lambo just because of the pure experience he has.
mm.
Pinero's only kicked in one season, but at least it's one season. That's probably enough talk about a kicker. Is that
Yes.
not enough talk?
Well, I
We
thought I'd
don't want
give you.
people
I know you
tuning
like
out.
it. I know
I
you
do love
like
my
it.
kickers. I do love my
But there
kickers.
isn't much else other news. Obviously, a little bit, injury news, which we'll head to now. Is obviously you've got a couple. You've got Brandon Eccles coming back, to practice. Keelan Cole's back from his COVID outage. Elijah Moore is listed as day to day with his quad. They're hopeful he'll play on Sunday, and there's a bunch of injuries, but I'm sure that's the one that we're really kind of focused on in terms of how much of a star he's been for the last month and a half or 2 months. Bryce Huff hopes to be back, which would make a big difference to the defensive line, getting some pressure and trying to contain Taysom Hill and the running game. So, what's your thoughts about this kind of generally about what I've said about the injuries?
Yeah, so Bryce Huff's expected back next week, so he's going to miss this week
Oh,
according to
he's back
Salah.
next week.
So
Okay,
it's next week that he'll be back.
right. Okay, so we
You
don't
know,
get to contain Taysom Hill then with
we
Bryce.
don't get to contain him. I mean, you're absolutely right. Elijah Moore is the big one there.
Mm,
With Corey Davis now having that core surgery, so out for the season. If we lose Elijah Moore as well, I mean, it's not so much about winning the game, but it's for Zach's purpose. In that, his number one receiver will probably be Keelan Cole, and then it'll be Denzel Mims, Berrios, Crowder. You know, all of a sudden, a strength of the team turns to quite a big weakness of the team.
yeah,
So I'm more worried about one Elijah Moore getting injured and stunting his development, but him missing and stunting Zach's development as well. And I actually really want to see Marshawn Lattimore against Moore. Yeah, Lattimore against Moore. That's a
yeah.
weird thing to say.
Less and more against more.
Lattimore against Moore.
Yeah.
Because he tends to cover your number one receiver, and there's no doubt that Elijah Moore is the Jets' number one receiver right now. So
Hmm.
I was really looking forward, and I still am looking forward because they said they're hopeful that Elijah Moore will play. And you kind of made the comment. Usually, when they say hopeful, it tends to verge on they're going to play.
Yeah, they've been the way if you read between the lines, and maybe there's a few exceptions here, but when they say hopeful, it's a bit more on the negative side. When they say expecting, we expect him back. We're hopeful he'll be back. That's the line between quite similar, but one's a bit more positive and one's negative. Generally, in terms of the way when you look at how it plays out. So hopefully, in the next couple of days, it becomes a bit more positive, and they get a good idea that he'll be back there. But
LDT's day to day as well, so we may have to watch GVR for another week.
hey, you get to this. That'll be fun for you.
Oh, I can't wait to do the film review of
Friend.
GVR on Wednesday.
Listen. We're not gonna have too many more weeks of GVR if anything's right. So
Yeah.
maybe for old time's sake, we just get one more. Just
And
for
a
old time's sake, just
nostalgic.
a bit of nostalgic run out there. Just absolutely turnstiling it up and blowing Zach up in the first quarter for 3 sacks.
Yeah, he had 2 pressures, and I think he was only in for like 20 snaps. Like, I, oh. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
saving $3 million on him in the off season. I don't think Joe Douglas could actually even consider bringing him back.
no.
He would be ridiculed, and he doesn't care what the fans think. But there's
There's
different
no,
levels,
yeah,
isn't there?
there is. I think if you have LDT and if he's shown to be pretty good upgrade, like decent upgraders, and if you could have him as a guy who'll be your backup if you were able to upgrade the guard position in the early rounds of the draft or in free agency, and add extra, or at least add just another person of that level and have that kind of depth like we've got at the tackle position. It'd be pretty good. I'd be, pretty happy with that depth with AVT, LDT, and a third decent guard to rotate those three between the two positions if there's any injury issues. So yeah, we'll see how that works out. Obviously, hopefully we don't see Dan Feeney on the field as well as GVR. So
He had a couple of snaps on Sunday.
I know, I know.
He popped his little head up. I think he was in on the first play of the game. Actually,
um,
popped his mullet in there.
Oh yeah, the mullet. Oh, God. I don't know if he'll stick around as well, but the legendary mullet. It's so funny the the amount of reverence we have for him as a person compared to like and the aura of his character, rather than like,
Yeah.
as a player we're like, okay, you're really fun, but like we don't want you anywhere near blocking for our future at quarterback. You know?
I think the New York Islanders should just sign him as like a hype man, just to
Yeah.
have in the crowd, just have him crushing beer cans on his head at every home game.
Yeah, it was. It seemed to work for a few of the games, and it was a very fun time. But it was funny as soon as training camp started to roll, we're like, okay, back in your box now. We've had your fun now for over
We
the
don't want to
summer.
see you again
No, we
for the
don't.
rest of
No,
the
we
season.
just don't want to see you again. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's really it. There's not much news to talk about. Obviously, we're hoping that Kamara doesn't play, but it looks like he will. So that's what it is. And I think we'll head over, talking about Kamara, we'll head over to our interview with James from Dome Patrol UK. Okay, so I'm joined by James from Dome Patrol UK, which is a Saints UK based podcast. James, thanks for joining us on the pod.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to talking some football and previewing the game this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a game with two teams on two different kind of this year. It's new beginnings for both teams in terms of you guys coming off your year with Brees retiring. And kind of into a new direction. Obviously, we're in our first year of head coach, all that stuff. So, yeah, I think it's kind of two teams where I think Saints are going in as favourites, of course, but you can see a different result happening. You never know what happens on a Sunday. Before we get into any of that stuff this year and what's happening this Sunday, tell us a bit about yourself and how you became a Saints fan.
Okay, well, I started watching the NFL in the 80s when it was on Channel 4 Sunday nights. Always tended to be San Francisco or Miami that were shown at the time because of Montana or Marino. Those are the two teams that you tended to see the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really follow a team. I just liked watching the NFL. And then I knew I had family in America. Didn't really know what part of America they were from, and an aunt of mine came to visit, and they live in Louisiana. So that would have been 1992. She came over, and she brought me a load of Saints merchandise over, T-shirts, hats, all that kind of stuff. So from that point on, the Saints became my team. So it's a bit of a family link
That's very nice.
to Louisiana. Is how I ended up being a Saints fan.
Oh, it's always like I said. Every story is interesting. How whether it be kind of playing video games or whether it's a family link, there's always funny stories in terms of how us UK fans find our teams, and it's very. I mean, it's not. It doesn't normally come from family links, so it's nice to hear one that it does, and that's a nice story. So in terms of this year, obviously, as I said before, coming off the big retirement from Breeze and into a new era, if things started off decent, pretty well with Jameis Winston and everything that he brings, positively and negatively. But with a defense as good as the Saints and the points that he can put up, I think it was it was a pretty decent start. But it's kind of faded away a bit with his injury. How was the kind of off season and the season been for you guys kind of this year?
Well, we, as a Saints fan, you knew quite early on in last season that it was going to be Breeze's last season, so you kind of build yourself up for what's coming. Now, obviously, we signed Winston last year, and Winston was the backup. I mean, all the talk about Jameis Winston and 30 interceptions and 30 touchdowns. I don't know what Sean Payton did to him, but he almost made him a bit gun shy. He wasn't throwing the ball as much as he was when he was playing for the Bucks. I don't know whether that was game plan design or whether Peyton had really drilled into him that he had to be a bit more cautious with the ball and not be so loose with it. I mean, before he got injured, he was the most efficient quarterback in the NFL. Quarterback rating was high. He only threw 4 interceptions. His touchdowns were, I think he was at 14 touchdowns or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a shame when he got injured, because when he was in the team, we beat the Packers, we beat the Patriots, we beat Washington, we beat Tampa Bay in the game that he got injured in. all teams that are in the playoffs now. I mean, the Patriots are number 1 seed in the AFC, and they've won, 6 on the bounce now, is it? I think.
Yeah, don't tell me
I
about
know you probably don't want to talk about the
I don't.
Patriots. I
Yeah,
can see that,
let's talk about them, the better.
Fine by me.
But no, I understand. Yeah, good opponent. You guys beat them with Jameis. Yeah.
Yeah, and then injuries struck, but it wasn't just Jameis. I'll go through the players that we haven't had in the last 3 weeks. So we haven't had QB1, Jameis Winston. We haven't had wide receiver 1, Michael Thomas. We've lost both our tackles, who are the best tackle tandem, I think, in the NFL, in Armstead and Ramczyk. We've lost our left guard. We've lost our slot cornerback. We've lost Kamara, who's been injured. We've just been absolutely decimated by injury. I mean, we had second game of the season away at Carolina, where all of our coaches, apart from 3, had COVID. So we had no coaches. It's just been a nightmare this season, to be honest. Like you said before, you kind of expect a down year after Brees, but it wasn't looking like it was going to be a down year until Jameis Winston got injured. So, I think if we can win another couple of games between now and the end of the season, we might finish 8-7. I mean, we're 5-7 now. Sorry, 9-8 it'll be, won't it? Yeah. So 9-8 or something like that, winning record. But for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to look at draft picks higher up the.
Welcome to our world.
No.
Not yet, not quite. I mean, we look at top 10 picks all the time, and like I said, it's a bit of a meme in Jets Twitter that you start looking at draft picks even before Thanksgiving. We're starting to look at our ranking and where we are, and I think this year is different in terms of we're not trying to lose games. Like last year, we're like, let's just lose every game, try and get Trevor Lawrence. This year,
but you couldn't even do that, right?
No, we didn't. But I'm actually okay with things how it worked out generally. But overall, this year is obviously we want to win as many games because we've got so many young players first year, plus obviously with Zach as well. We want to win all those games because those are first year of hopefully the future with a lot. We've got Michael Carter, Elijah Moore at the skill positions. We've got Elijah Vera-Tucker guard. That's just offensively. Defensively, we've got a ton of young players as well. So that's all experience that can go forward. So we're no longer in tank mode because we think that we've got the QB. Now we have to see how it works out. But yeah, it's looking at the draft position is an interesting thing. And like I said, I can imagine for Saints fans, it's been one where you're looking into January, you're looking into hopefully February potentially, and now it's a different reality. But that's just the way it is going to be once you get past a player like Brees, and not that we would know, but I can imagine it from anybody who has to get past a massive player like that who's kind of really taken the team on his shoulders. Not that the team around him has been fantastic, but he definitely has done an incredible job, and that's why he was the kind of the Hall of Fame player that he will be, in a few years. So. Yeah, it was always going to have a bit of a bounce back. But I think that Sean Payton being, the coach he is, I think it's the reason why you've been respectable and you'll continue to be respectable. What's your feelings about Sean Payton, post Drew Brees?
Well, whatever it was he was doing when Winston was under center at the start of the season was working. The game plan was working. There was heavy dose of Kamara, obviously, because he's not the best running back in the NFL, but he's the best all-around back, pass catching and running. He can do both. You've got Derrick Henry and people like that who are the running backs, but Kamara can kind of do it all. I think we were seeing Sean Payton was excited by what he could do with the different quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, him and Brees came to the Saints at the same time in 2006 or 2005, 2006. So they've been with each other the whole way through. So it's probably very different for him not having Brees as his quarterback, and it was working. And he even got Trevor Siemian looking semi-decent when he came in. I mean, Siemian came into the game and beat the Bucs in the game where Winston got injured. And now I think you're going to see Sean Payton a little bit different with Taysom Hill under center, because Taysom Hill is a very different quarterback to Winston, to Brees, to any quarterback in the NFL. I suppose maybe Lamar Jackson's probably the only one in terms of the running.
I don't know. It's kind of in terms of the running, maybe not quite there, obviously, but similar. He's a very unique player. I mean, what's your general feelings on Taysom and say that contract that he was given, where it's like we'll pay you this much if you're QB, this much if you're a skill position. What's your feelings generally about the whole Taysom Hill experience?
So I've always been on the side of that he is more useful in the role where he does everything.
Hmm.
So don't try and make him be a quarterback. Let him play fullback, running back, tight end, wide receiver. I mean, he's great on special teams with, he's blocked 2 punts and things like that. I don't believe he is a quarterback.
Yeah.
That you can build your team around. Look,
I
last
think
week
I think the
when
same as well, really. In terms of when you see the limit of the throwing ability is just there when you're going to face the best teams, and you may be able to have a good performance against us, especially with our run D. But when you go up in terms of the really top teams in the NFL, and especially when you get to the crucible that is the playoffs, you need someone who is not going to be one dimensional and is going to be able to win it both ways. And I think Saints fans are going to want that eventually because you've had a massive that's what you become accustomed to for many years of
yeah.
somebody who can run the offense on that level. So I feel the same. Even though he's a very great NFL player generally. Um, it's an interesting player, and I'm looking forward to watching him more closely on Sunday as well, and seeing how the Jets manage it. With Alvin back in and him also running at you, it's going to be interesting because we are very, very poor. Like I say, I've said it multiple times, but it's just we're coming off a performance that was just we couldn't stop the Eagles until they're literally the last drive where they had a false snap because their center went out, Kelsey went out, and then they had a false snap that basically went like miles behind Minshew, and then they had to punt. But other than that, we couldn't stop them. They
Yeah.
literally scored at least a field goal, if not touchdowns, on every drive. So I can't. I'm not looking forward to see. I love Kamara, but I'm not looking forward to seeing Kamara come back against the Jets. I was like, typical, classic that he's coming back for the Jets. But yeah. So in terms of this game, I mean, we know about Kamara. We know the tackles. We know that they may or may not play. We think maybe one or the other. So we have to see in terms of the injury reports going through. And we obviously know some of the defensive players, the big names, and the names that
Yeah.
we know, like someone like Demario Davis. Who's a player that we may not know who's kind of been doing some good stuff on Sundays?
So there's a couple of players for the Saints who may not be getting wide recognition. Is Eric McCoy, our centre. He's been really good. He missed a few games with injury earlier on, but he's really good. He's great in the pass game. He's really good in the run game. So obviously,
Hey,
you've got an ex-Saints defensive lineman, Sheldon Rankins.
yeah.
I don't know if he's playing this weekend. I've not seen if he's been playing, but
He didn't practice today. He got a knee injury against the
yeah,
Eagles. So I'm not sure where. We've got so many that did not practice today. So I think they're just giving a lot of rest days.
yeah.
And just letting people heal up. But we'll see how that is. But yeah, he's been doing all right. Rankins. He's wins some outrageous. There's some outrageous plays that he puts on film, and then others that you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what you think with Rankins? Is like sometimes it's just a
Yeah,
beast on one play and then not really there on the other.
so his first season for us, when we drafted him, he got injured. He broke his leg. And then the
Mm.
second season, he came back and he was unbelievable.
Mm.
And everybody was thinking, right, okay, so this guy's got the potential to be Aaron Donald light. Not as good as Aaron Donald because he's just a freak.
Yeah,
But he was up there, a high amount of sacks. But then injuries again, tore his Achilles, and then then his knee the season after. So that's why he ended up being let go.
right.
Was because of injury more than anything else.
Mm.
So obviously that matchup, McCoy against Rankins, they've trained and played against each other for 3 years, so
that's
they'll know each
interesting.
other. But McCoy is one who is good, and then on the defensive side of the ball, there's a couple actually. We've got Paulson Adebo, rookie cornerback.
Love Adebo. I liked him in the
This
draft.
year,
Yeah.
yeah, this year he's a rookie, so he does make the odd mistake, but he hits hard.
Mm.
He's always around the ball. If somebody makes a catch on him, he's there to make the tackle. So he doesn't give up big yards. Um, But I suppose the main one, and it's a name that's probably more infamous in NFL terms than famous, and that's our safety, Marcus Williams.
Right, yeah.
So you'll know him from the Minnesota Miracle
Yes.
in 2017. So that's how everybody knows Marcus Williams. That was his rookie year, and his career's kind of been defined by that moment. But he is a free agent, or he's playing on the franchise tag. He's playing on the franchise tag this year. He's going to get paid this off season. He's rangy, he's quick.
Could be us. We are desperate need of safeties. If we let Marcus May go, and because we don't want to go elsewhere, we could be in the market for a big name safety. So I've been looking at his name actually as a name who popped up on the free agent list. Yeah. Do you think he hits? Do you think what's the reality that he may hit, or do you think you might sign him to long term?
Well, now, any Saints fans that listen to this will know what I'm talking about here. The salary cap is a myth to the Saints. It's an absolute myth.
That's true.
Mickey
even
Loomis,
for NFL fans, I think we know the Saints and the salary cap is a bit of a funny situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mickey Loomis, the GM, and then Kai Harley is the guy who works underneath him, who work their magic with the salary cap. We're currently 61 million over the projected salary cap, but last year we were 99 million over. And have managed to sort it out. Now, there's various articles doing the rounds from Saints beat writers that can tell you how the Saints can get under that salary cap quite easily by extending and converting bonuses and all that kind of stuff. I just don't see how we're going to be able to afford to keep Marcus Williams, and it's a real shame.
It's a safety position as well. You've got to really think the value of paying a high value safety when you're kind of building elsewhere. I mean, we've got to consider that. I think we'll probably go in the draft because I don't think we value the safety position as high, especially as we got rid of one high value safety, one who's become a very high value safety in Jamal Adams, and kind of got past that headache of dealing with, because unfortunately the safety position, when you have it and it's good, it really helps, but it does have a kind of limitation in terms of how much money you spend on the cap on it. So I think he's a name that we're interested in because of how bad our safety situation is. But I think it always comes down to the Marcus May situation. But yeah, that's definitely a name I've been pointing out. And I think, yeah, you're right. For most people, I think it's quite infamous from that famous play of whiffing on that tackle. But overall, he's been a solid player.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah. So I think that would be... He'll be making effort to try and stop our wide receivers. We throw the ball more to the wide receivers than any other team. So we kind of, that's probably because our tight end room is atrocious. So we'd rather not go there. And I think they've learned not to go there too often. So that probably works out pretty well.
Ours isn't particularly good either, to be honest with you. So
yeah, I did like Troutman as a potential late round fantasy guy, but it's just injuries, isn't it? With
injuries, inconsistencies, and the fact that he came from a Division 3 college.
Yeah.
So he's not used to, but he makes some insane catches and insane plays, but then he makes some really silly mistakes.
Yeah.
It's his second year, and he came out of a D3 college, so
it happens sometimes. Yeah.
It does.
Tight end position sometimes they get better over a few years, so we'll see about that one. In terms of where you think the game might go, in terms of a prediction during the game, something that might happen, what do you think something that could happen, a prediction for the game?
So we've talked before about your run defense not being great. Kamara is back. Taysom Hill is going to be our starting quarterback this week. I think the Saints are going to run for a minimum of 250 yards this week, a minimum of 250 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground as well. There's my prediction.
Yeah, I don't know if that's bold enough, really. We'll see, but it's a bold one. I mean, it is bold, but I think it's a lot of logic behind it in terms of the two teams matching up. And I think our offense did quite well last week, in the first half, and I think they just got froze out because the defense. They were on the sideline for real time, about an hour and a half, with only being on the field for 70 seconds. So they basically were frozen out. A young QB and a young offense was just frozen out. Hopefully they stay in the game a bit more and they can keep up, because I think they're going to have to put up more points to try and win this game as well, because I think you guys are going to run all over us. I completely agree with that one. In terms of leading into the score prediction for the game, what do you think is a score prediction you're looking at for this Sunday?
Well, I mean, the Saints are currently favoured by 6 points, I think, this weekend, and I was quite
so, yeah.
surprised. I was quite surprised by that line, given our current form.
Yeah, that's because of our current form.
True, but we've got Cam Jordan, our defensive ends, on the COVID list. Mark
Right,
Ingram is
okay.
now on the COVID list.
Right, okay.
You know, we are dealing with injuries. I think the Saints are going to win 24-17.
Right, okay. Yeah. That's I haven't put mine together yet in terms of where I'm at, but I suspect it might be around that level for me. I think it's gonna be a relatively close game, but I think you guys are probably gonna have a little bit too much for us, and I'm just thinking about how Zach will do against your D. I don't know if I think 17 points is a fair one because we've got some decent talent there, and I think if he has a decent game, we could do it. But I think he's going to come on stuck in some situations. So I think they're at that kind of 17-point range, and you guys just north of 20 is about where it's right. So I think that's probably a good one. James, thank you so much for jumping on the pod. Thanks for joining us. It's been a really good chat. If anybody wants to follow any of the stuff that you guys do, you know, there's people who like to listen to like other UK-based fans from around the NFL. Where can people find you and listen to your stuff?
Yes, so I used to be on the UK Saints podcast, but we merged 2 years ago with a podcast over in the States called the Dome Patrol. So that's where the Dome Patrol name comes from.
Yep.
The Dome Patrol is a famous set of linebackers the Saints had in the 80s and 90s that were really good. So that's where the names come from. So we do the odd UK podcast with Ben, my colleague and friend.
James, thanks so much for joining us on the pod. And yeah, it was really good chatting with you. And yeah, we'll head back to me and David. Okay, so we'd like to thank James for jumping on the pod. And yeah, really good chat. So we move on to our preview for the game. Defensively, David, this team potentially, if Kamara is back, it's looking like one of the tackles, if not both of the tackles, are back. Taysom Hill running the ball. This is another running challenge to see if we can actually stop. I mean, defensively, we have to do something to improve what was happening last year. There has to be changes, right?
Well, you would think so, but we're running at such low capacity on that defensive side of the ball. I'm just not sure if we have the option. You're probably not going to change the system this deep into a season. The personnel you can't really change because we just don't have anyone available. So I almost feel like we're going to have to just kind of grin and bear it for the rest of the season. And their running attack scares the hell out of me because, I mean, Taysom Hill he's not going to beat you that often from the pocket. He can throw the ball, but when he throws it, you've probably won because, you know, he threw 4 interceptions last week. He's not the most accurate passer. He's a little bit... he just doesn't look after the football. So if you can keep him in the pocket and make him throw the ball...
He's a bit Tebow-esque, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
If you can keep him in there and make him throw it, then you've got a good chance. You know, the receivers aren't, you know, anything to really get concerned. I mean, our secondary probably are something to get concerned about. But I don't think Michael Thomas is back yet, is he? I haven't looked at the injury news for the Saints, but... he seems to have been out for like the whole season. So
yeah. I think there's more to that story than when I was speaking to James. Yeah, there's more to that story. So
is there?
Well, it's just overall in terms of I think it's injury, but there's other stuff on the background. I don't think why he's not playing. So, yeah, he won't be back. So yeah, I think it's the guys we've
got Marcus Callaway then.
Yeah, it's Callaway. It's and I think they're also missing Harris as well. I think he's suspended. Is it Deontay Harris? I forgot. Yeah. So
Deontay Harris.
The Harris, the receiver Harris that's on the Saints, guys. You know which one's. I forget what the name of the Harris is, but yeah, he's out as well. So you want Taysom to throw the ball, except what you're probably going to see is Taysom throwing a bunch of screens. You know, because and getting to Kamara on the screen.
Kamara in the ball.
I mean, Kamara on the screen game versus us in the screen game. I mean, that's like just in screens alone, they're going to get like 200 yards just on that. It's just like, it's so scary because you put him in open space and he's one of the best, if not the best runners when in an open space with the power and the pace that he has and the combination of movement and agility. I mean, we'll see how far back he is. But remember, he was questionable for the game. He almost played in the game on Thursday Night Football last week against the Cowboys. So he's had those 10 days to rest up. So you would expect that he would be pretty good condition, and he went back into full practice straight away on Wednesday. So it looks like we're getting a fully fit Kamara ready to roll. So yeah, I mean, in terms of stopping the run, is there any way? I know you said don't change the scheme, but there has to be some sort of mindset about being a bit more disciplined in trying to stop the run a little bit more. And because the passing game is on paper so limited, and you really want them to do that, you put them in a situation where you kind of force them to do that and kind of say beat us with your arm rather than with your legs, right? But do you think even we can do that, even if we put a mental idea like that's the main key and not the sacks this week?
I don't know. I don't
It's
know.
contain, right? We have to
the only thing.
contain.
You can contain, but if you
Yeah.
focus too much on the edges, you're gonna not protect the middle, and then you're just gonna have Alvin Kamara going straight up. Because how many times in the last few weeks have we seen the middle of our defensive line just open up like the Red Sea and just someone just swanter through it? You know, the issue is that we can't stop it on the edge and we can't stop it inside, and that's the big issue. And what I say is Foley's having a pretty down season for him in terms of run defense. Yeah, he's not looked anywhere close to as good as he has the last couple of seasons, and I don't know if that is because of the new system.
I think
because
it
the
is.
defensive ends are spread a little wider, so he has to cover a little bit more space inside.
Yeah, I think it's just him, and his assignments are also a little bit more aggressive, I think, than in previous years, where he was more kind of a contain and kind of two block situation, where now he's kind of been asked to be a little bit more penetrating, I think, in his work. So I don't know. I just think there's a combination there in terms of what he's doing and why he's not quite as good as he was, because he can do a good job at stopping the run, and him and Quinnen in the middle have done it in the past. So as me and Matt talked about on Monday, so I don't know. I just feel that there has to be some sort of really even if you overcorrect, please just overcorrect and just try to really just focus on the run and just get beat. If you get beat down the field by Taysom Hill throwing his one a game great throw that he seems to do, one good throw, then fair enough. I'd rather get beat on that, but it's all about, like I said, we've talked about before, about the whole motto of eliminating explosives. Don't allow the big play, allow the small things, allow the underneath. But then I just feel that it just leads us to get gashed up because we just don't have the players to contain enough. It ends up being, instead of small gains, it's medium gains, and then we have lots of medium gains, which is basically first downs every single time.
I mean, what we'll probably see is we probably will see a lot of Elijah Riley down in the box. Maybe we will play a little bit more cover one than we have historically. Maybe that's the route, is to get Riley down in the box and almost have him as a spy on Taysom Hill, just to keep him in the pocket. You could do that. I mean, one thing we've got to do, we've got to stop their linemen getting to the second level. I mean, that's what's hurting us this year, is that our interior defensive linemen aren't stopping them enough, in that they're climbing to the second level. We saw it against the Colts, and to be fair, the Colts offensive line is outstanding, so you kind of expect that. But we've seen it against multiple other teams as well this season. We saw it last week as well. So if we can do that, get Elijah Riley down there to just maybe spy on Hill, maybe that's the route. Maybe that's the way we got. We've got Quincy who's got the speed to get to the outside if Taysom does get there. It's going to be a really interesting game plan. So I think you're right. I don't think we can continue playing in the manner that we have. I think they have to make a small tweaks. It's not going to be a wholesale changes, because we won't be able to, but a small tweak to just keep Taysom in the pocket. Absolutely. Let's make him beat us in the way that he doesn't want to beat us.
Exactly. And the other thing about beating us quickly rather than slowly is, if you look at last week's game, we were in the game. Zach was playing well. The offense was playing well. 3 straight touchdowns. Fantastic work. Got completely frozen out. Went completely to sleep, and it was because the defense played that bend, don't break, but then eventually broke anyway. And so they ended up being on the field for such amount of time, instead of it being maybe, a quick drive for the opponent. Not that you want that, but if you go for a kind of boom or bust approach, where you could make a positive play and actually get sacks, strip sacks, things like this could come. The risk is obviously that you leave down the field for a big gain. Well, the bonus, even in the worst case scenario that there is a big gain and a quick drive, is that your offense don't get frozen out, which I think is important for our young offense, and especially the young QB, to not be frozen out. So it's kind of got a double meaning, that even in the worst case scenario, at least there's a silver lining to it, in terms of compared to what happened last week, because you just don't want to see the defense working hard to eventually fail, and then they end up like just like I said, the offense is out there for like an hour and a half, only playing for like a
I
minute.
think it
So
was a minute, wasn't it? It was a minute 13 or something like that.
it
We had
was
the ball in
70
the third
seconds.
quarter.
It was 70
So
seconds that one through and out, and that was an hour and a half of real time. I mean, that's just even some of the good offenses would struggle to get back into a flow. Like
yeah,
maybe the great offenses wouldn't, but then a young offense with Zach coming back,
I mean,
just not going to work really.
one thing we could potentially do is Salah likes to rotate his defensive lineman quite a lot.
Yeah.
So at the minute, because of the injuries we have, rotating is actually bringing on quite. I don't want to say poor players, but not as good players more often than they need to be.
Yes.
So maybe he decides just to keep the first unit on for a little bit longer this week. So keep Foley in there. Is Sheldon Rankins back? I didn't see him on the injury report. So
I think he didn't practice on Wednesday. Did not practice with
okay.
the
So he
the
might
injury,
be
I believe.
out again. So might see some more Jonathan Marshall this week.
Yeah.
But you can keep John Franklin Myers in there a little bit more. You keep Nathan Shepherd out of the game a little bit more.
Yeah.
There's little things that you can do, and I know Salah likes to rotate, and that's his philosophy, and that's the way he's always coached. But this is the adaptability that we talk about in terms of in season. Those injuries have meant that we can't rotate as much, losing Lawson,
It's
Curry,
Matt's
and
turkey
Huff.
sausage, right?
There you
Turkey, what
go.
he mentions on Monday. He said, if you haven't got steak, don't make a meal that's dependent on steak. Work with what you've got, and then when you can go back into the shops and get more ingredients, then go get your steak. Then you can prepare the meal you wanted to make in the first place, and that's next year. Like I think right now, you've got to work where the defense has to help play kind of a complete football game from all the sides of the ball to help the offense be the best it can be and help all the young players prosper. And I think the way that they're playing is kind of they're like forcing themselves to play with their hands behind the back, in a boxing fight, and like you're like, come on, like just let's change it up a bit. I know it's
untie
not
one hand. Just go for the jab. Just untie one hand.
exactly. Just change it up a bit and see what we do. I know it's not the future philosophy, but you've got the ability to make them changes. They've got the defensive acumen to do this. They're not just they have their preference, but they obviously know other schemes, and I'm sure they can create other looks, other things that the players can do to try and change it up a little bit. We need to see a little bit more of that because I think it's just not working, and it's obviously having a negative effect on the rest of the team as well, which is what you don't want to see. So, yeah, we will see what happens in terms of who's fit for the Saints. Obviously, those two tackles in terms of getting to the second line. We know that the centre, Eric McCoy, is a good centre. The tackles are really good as well. So one of them not playing would be a big bonus, even if Alvin Kamara is healthy. So we will see how we manage that. Offensively, I guess it's more of the same. We want to see more of the same from the offense, don't we? From that first half was really encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why would you change something that resulted in 3 touchdowns on 3 drives?
That's
really,
amazing. I mean, you talk about that. That's like to start the game off with 3 drives and 3 touchdowns from those drives. I mean, that's something that we just haven't seen for a long time with the Jets offense. So it was something that we got to wish for more, and hopefully it translates to a performance over 60 minutes, and we'll see how that happens. But what are the specifics you're looking at with this matchup against the Saints D?
I mean, the Saints defense are outstanding run defenders. They have one of the best defensive lines. They weren't great last week, but overall, I think they're a top 10 unit in the NFL in terms of stuff in the run. So whether we can get the run game going is going to be one of the key aspects of this game. Obviously Michael Carter's still 1 week away. A lot of people have asked about his injury situation. He should be back next week, I believe. Salah was asked about it, and he said there was no new injury concerns with him. So let's hope he's back. But Tevin Coleman, obviously, we'll see if he plays. So then it comes down to Ty Johnson and Austin Walters. So, we're putting quite a weakness at the moment against one of their biggest strengths. So it may be that Zach does end up in, unfortunately, quite a few second and third and longs if we can't get the run game going early.
Mm.
So I kind of want to see Mike just switch it up a little bit. I want to see some more passes on first down just to reduce the distance a little bit. But I wouldn't stray away from what he was doing last week. I thought LaFleur called a really good game last week. I thought Zach executed it really well. I thought the receivers did, for the most part, a good job. I'd quite like to see Denzel involved a little bit more again. I mean, he had one target, one catch.
That's the news we've actually dropped. We didn't drop in the news. We were so focused on the amazing kicker news that we forgot, obviously, that Corey Davis is out for the rest of the year with his core He's got the surgery on his core. What is it called? Core muscle
Core
surgery.
muscle. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just called core muscle.
So we wish him well for the off season. But now it's a big chance for Denzel to come in and to really take that role that's vacant. And we know he has the ability to do so. He just hasn't been clicking. Well, now's your chance. You've got 5 games to do it, and we all believe in the talent, and we all wish him to smash it. So fingers crossed, and let's see what happens. But it's up to him to take the chance that is in front of him now.
Guess the issue is if Moore doesn't play on Sunday, it probably means that Lattimore is up against Mims, which is not the easiest first matchup you could ask for
No.
in terms of Denzel. But you're absolutely right. What a great opportunity. I mean, I think Samini came out with a few little tidbits in his Flight Deck podcast saying, he would be surprised if the Jets didn't trade Denzel Mims this offseason. That seems to be the feeling inside the organisation that he's likely not going to be here next season. Which is, that's quite sad because he's had injury issues. He only got drafted last year. You invested a second round pick in him, and you really haven't given him much of an opportunity. So, that's the feeling now. But he's got 5 games where if he goes out and he puts up a couple of big performances, scores his first NFL touchdown. Cause, I can't believe we're this far into 2021 and he still hasn't had a touchdown over basically 1.5 seasons.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how much they use him. Are they going to just put Keelan Cole in that position and then rotate in Braxton and other how far down is Denzel Mims really? That's kind of the question I want to answer this weekend, and I think we're going to see it.
Well, they've always said that he's basically
he's the Corey Davis.
He's the Corey Davis replacement. So in that case, he's the ex backup.
There's no excuses, is there? He said he only knows one position. Well, now he only has to play one position.
Exactly. So it's we'll see if they just to be honest, we know that a lot of this stuff can be rubbish that they put out there. They're just trying to protect a narrative or set up a narrative or do something. So but he does give him a chance, and like I said, we all hope that he does really well because I think if he can have a really good end of season, it changes like what maybe we have to do. In terms of the premium picks potentially, if we can see that maybe he could be a future player, a really effective player who we think he's got all the ability to be that would make a big difference in terms of how we approach the offseason with Elijah being as good as he's been and still having Corey Davis and maybe bringing Keelan Cole back. We don't know, but we've got good players overall. If Denzel can be a good player himself, then it helps us kind of in terms of team building. So. Like I said, it was a significant pick, second round pick. It was Joe Douglas' second pick, of his career as the GM. So you hope it works out, and like I said, he's got that chance to do so. In terms of the offensive line, our line, obviously you said GVR might be back in, unfortunately. But what's the defensive line for the kind of the Saints looking like in terms of that as a challenge for the offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, they are really powerful up front. So they do defend the run because they do get penetration quite easily.
Right.
So, that there are going to be issues in terms of the interior. I think it's going to be a big game for AVT. He's had a few shaky weeks after having a really good run of games, but you kind of expect that from any rookie. And sometimes I think that offensive linemen are treated a little bit differently as rookies than say a quarterback or a running back or a wide receiver, in that once they hit a certain level, people expect them to just stay at that level, and they're not supposed to have these up and downs that a normal rookie has.
Yeah.
And AVT's going through that, especially in pass protection. I mean, his run blocking should concern absolutely nobody. He's still a fantastic run blocker on a week-to-week basis. But pass protection is a little different in terms of the technique that you need in terms of facing different caliber of pass rushers, especially on the interior. The interior pass rush you get in college, where he was in the Pac-12, isn't going to be anywhere comparable to what he's facing right now. So it shouldn't come as a concern, but this week is not a great matchup in terms of that interior defensive line for the Saints against our interior offensive line, especially if GVR's in there. And that's not just to bag on GVR, that's just to say you're changing up the line again. LDT, AVT, and CMG, they've all kind of settled in. I know, bloody acronyms are crazy, but they've all settled in quite nicely, haven't they? You can see that they've got a little bit of chemistry going on that interior now.
Yeah.
So then you have to switch it up, and I know GVR played for most of the season, so it shouldn't be a huge switch up. But sometimes it just is. Sometimes it is just different. Whether it's how they communicate or how easily they block. CMG helps out a lot, and if he has to help GVR, that means he can't help AVT. And there's little bits in there that result in that. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But I don't like that matchup. That's not a matchup that anyone should probably be sitting there going, "Oh yeah, I really like that matchup for the Jets."
Yeah, you just want to see. You just hope, like I said, Zach is kind of kept relatively upright and it doesn't take too much damage, because that's when he starts to kind of it starts to speed up the game for him a little bit. You can see it affects him when you've seen it. That early when he gets early damage. He kind of turns. It doesn't end up well normally. Even with that game against the Texans, which we ended up winning, you can see his performance was definitely affected by the early hits he took in that game. So yeah, and I guess just touching special teams, Eddie Pinero, hey, hit the extra points,
100%.
hit some field goals. We're not hoping that you're going to hit some 55-yarder. We hope we do, but just get everything under 40 right now, and we'll be all good for now.
Where's he good? Where's he good at? Do you know what? He's had 2 kicks of 50+ yards in his career, and he's made both of them. So
okay,
there you go.
Okay,
maybe that's the money shot right there.
And it's in Chicago, so it's a kind of windy, open field.
Well, it's called the Windy City for a reason, isn't it?
Yeah, an open field stadium. So that's not a bad place to.
It's not great between 40 and 49.
Great. Okay.
3 for 7.
Okay. Well,
there's a lot of kicker content going on in this podcast.
I know.
Well, that's the kicker pod.
These are the things that matters when you've had the kickers that we've been having, and it just drives you nuts, because it's those little things. It's like when you've scored 3 touchdowns and yet you're down a field goal at halftime. You're like, oh, dude.
Especially when that guy's doing pretty well up in New England as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's been the kind of, we've had that since he left, is when we've had that kind of rotating spot for so many years now, and yeah, hopefully we lock on one and we can keep one for a couple of years. And I saw Daniel Carson from the Raiders get a big contract. Hopefully we can give a contract to a kicker, because we've got one worth giving to in a few years. But we've got,
and also the kicker that was actually with the Saints now, because Brett Maher, he actually started his career with the Jets. He was actually an undrafted guy who was on our practice squad in 2013. So there you go. Look at that.
So much
what
kicker
fact bomb right there.
See, we're obsessed with kickers. That's why we're the UK podcast. We love football, and it translates to American football, and the kicking part is so important. So just follow that narrative. So anyway, guys. I think that we'll wrap it up with that. I think there's enough kicker news and enough of that. I'm excited to see Zach again. I really enjoyed that first half performance, and it's always exciting to see the young QB get out there again. And how are you feeling about Sunday generally?
I'll wait until the final injury report comes out to kind of give a good explanation of how I'm feeling, because it will be completely dependent, and I think it will be largely dependent on if Elijah Moore plays.
I'm still going to pin you to a score, though. I'm going to pin you down to a score. Come on.
What, did I go for a Jets win last week? I did, didn't I? That was a mistake.
Yeah, I think if you put down a score with, like I said, you got to factor in the hopeful, the way they discuss it, and kind of factor in.
I still think the Saints are going to win. Their run attack scares the bejeebers out of me.
Yeah.
So if Kamara plays against our unit, I just don't like it. I don't like it one bit. So I'm going to go, but I'm going to say the offense with Elijah Moore puts up some more points. So I'm going to go 27-24 to the Saints.
Okay.
It's going to be close. Missed field goal.
I was going 28-21. 28-21. So no, that would give no kicks for, no field goals for.
I'm not happy about that.
Yeah, just straight touchdown. Yeah, 27-21, 28-21 is my one. I think the Saints are favoured as about a touchdown victory winner, and I think I think they're about that. I don't think we're gonna. I just don't trust the defense, like you said. It's just.
I mean, we're averaging 30 points against, so yours is a lot closer to where it probably will end up.
Yeah, it's just it's so poor. The defense, I just can't look at it. I just don't see, until they prove it. I just don't see if they are going to make any changes to the scheme to just try and make these more, little tweaks. Even we're not seeing it. So until it happens, then we can talk about it after that. But until then, I'm going to predict that they don't. that they have the same players because that's who they got, and they treat them in the scheme and they don't do anything, and that's what it's going to be. We're going to just put up a lot of points against us, and I don't know if we can score that many. We'll see, but because the Saints D is good, like you said, so it's going to be a bit of a difficult matchup, but still winnable. Like we know it's not one of the ones where I'll be shocked if we do pull out the win. So we'll see what Sunday brings, guys. Thanks for listening. We've had some positive feedback this week. It's always really good to hear that from any of our listeners. Always get in contact with us if you're liking anything, if you want to ask any questions. We're always really happy to answer any questions. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, on Facebook at Jets UK Pod. We have our YouTube channel. We'd love you to subscribe to that. Give likes to the videos. Help push the narrative, push the algorithm a little bit on that. That'd be great. That's our video version of the podcast as well. David, you do the Jets Way writing every week, which is great stuff. You've got your piece on today, as we're recording on Thursday. You got your piece on why you wouldn't draft Tyler Linderbaum, which is an interesting one because you've been one of his main kind of supporters for a long time, even before the season started.
I still support Tyler.
I know you do. I know. But it's worth a read, and guys, subscribe to that.
I was crying into my suit. when I was writing that.
No.
That was emotional.
You're putting that emotion into that piece. So yeah, guys, check out that writing. There's a lot of emotion in there. You really enjoy that. And I think it's an interesting piece because I think a lot of us obviously do appreciate how good he is. And I think it's an interesting take. So go check that out. And yeah, guys, so enjoy the game on the weekend. Enjoy the weekend generally. And we'll catch you on the next one.